welcome to today's chat with Nadja and Ro, all things to do with team coaching. So today we're going to take you on a bit of a journey and ask you to think about, when you've been working with a team, have you ever left a session where something felt a bit off and you can't quite put your finger on it, but there's just something there in the back of your mind?
Yeah, I must say that happens in real life and, in every day, when I wake up in the morning as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, definitely. So and in a professional and team setting, what I've noticed is that sometimes it's not really what's said, it's what's not said, and so there is this undercurrent, and that really tells a story quite often, and it's
Yeah.
and a really valuable one once you're aware of. So this bias that can actually shape the conversation quite a bit, even when you're not aware of it.
Yeah, exactly. And often when we're working in complex systems, and let's remember that human systems are complex because they're unpredictable, you don't know what's going to happen from one minute to the next. And that bias does show up in obvious ways, but it often hides in the dynamics within the team or the roles that the people play within the team and some of the assumptions that we come with as we join together as a team, which we don't even notice.
Yeah, that's right. And that's today our topic is where we are unpacking this systematic bias that shows up in teams and what we as coaches and leaders can actually do about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So systemic bias is a bit of a mouthful. So let's start with the basics. So when we say systemic bias in teams, what are we actually talking about, Nadja? Come on, tell us what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I just overspoke in terms of systematic bias, which is something quite different because it's not there all the time. It's really
Yeah.
sort of in the system, in the team, right? Because quite often we feel like teams is just a collection of individuals, but the whole purpose of a team is these individuals coming together in a dynamic, in a system. And so it's not just about individual prejudice. It's about how the system, the role, the structure, the power dynamics, all of those things, how they subtly shape what's seen and what's not seen, what gets spoken out, what not, and what gets ignored altogether.
Yeah, yeah. So we're essentially talking about three things, aren't we, based on what you've just said there? We're talking about perception bias, which is, you've got different stakeholders within the team and outside of the team who see the same thing very differently. This sometimes shows up as a budget. We all think we have an understanding of the budget, but we might have different perceptions of the budget. If you're a finance director, you might have a different version than if you're a team member. We've got things like confirmation bias, which means that the team only sees what they're looking for that confirms their current situation. So they're just looking for, we were right kind of thing is how that often shows up. And then you've got that system blindness where the team becomes hyper focused and hyper vigilant about what they're doing as a team, and they lose sight of the wider system. So those three biases, perception, confirmation, and system bias, tend to show up in teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And this hyper focusedness
Mm.
can be really useful in situations, like you put the blinkers on the horse when it's racing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
Yeah.
you said, it's not necessarily that these biases are actually malicious, or even confirmation bias might just be really you thinking about something that really can contribute here. And perception bias is really all about, having different perspectives and valuing that diversity of perspectives. However, if you're not aware of it and you're making these sort of adaptive shortcuts, that can be where sort of this complexity comes in, and how teams navigate that, so that they can become aware of the blind spots and actually work with them.
Yeah, so that awareness is really crucial, isn't it? Because I think as team coaches, we often feel those biases before we can name them. And it's like the moment in a session where everyone avoids a topic and no one wants to say anything, or they jump in too quickly to reach agreement because they don't want they're avoiding conflict. So often we can actually sense them before we can actually name them.
Absolutely. And so what in this is the good news. So we've
Mm.
looked at it from different perspectives, right? And so there are practical ways to help you systematically do that. Like we help teams all the time to become more aware of these biases and to work with them instead of against them.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you know, because you work with me, that I really like is reflection. And I've created a little reflection guide, I can't even say it, which is a very simple tool that helps teams debrief after sessions. So, what patterns are we noticing? Who's being heard? Who's not being heard? Are we jumping to conclusions or are we holding the space for complexity? So just a simple reflection guide that helps a team start to spot some of these behaviors.
Yeah, and I always love how you are at the forefront of introducing technology in our coaching. So there's real-time versions of that as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I love this word reflexivity, which is in the moment observation. So it's while it's happening, because of course, if you can be reflexive while you're doing something, it means you can take action. So and you've seen me do this lots of times, okay, let's just take a pause. So what's happening right now in this dynamic, or what's happening right now in this conversation? Things like, are we actually solving the problem or are we actually reacting from habit? And even, have we actually gained clarity on the problem here? What is the problem that we're actually trying to solve? So it's about helping the teams notice in the moment what's actually taking place.
Yeah, and a reflection guide like that gives people the opportunity to not necessarily just speak out because it might not be safe enough. People can just take some notes, right? Initially, and
Yeah.
then gradually over time, sort of share these thoughts. And by having real-time versions or integrating technology, you can actually have the data there, right there and then. And so you assign sort of within the team these noticing roles, so people can start to make comments, on anonymized data. And so some members may sort of keep track of some emotional undercurrents that they're becoming aware of, or someone might spot patterns in who talks most, who talks least,
Yeah.
who needs a bit of a nudge from time to time.
Yes.
Uh, and it really gets the whole team involved, right? In servicing this invisible. It's a bit like a quest.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I love that because that's exactly it. And I loved also the fact that we talked about there, it's the team taking responsibility. So it's not us doing that to the team, it's helping the team build that capacity to do it for themselves over time. That's our role there as coaches, is to help the team become capable of coaching themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're a team leader and you're feeling intrigued by this conversation, or a coach, and you're wondering, how do I actually help my team grow without telling them what to fix, right? Because we always talk about how human beings we are, instead of human doings. So, start with the bias and start with noticing, start with being and doing it together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that because bias, it's not about eliminating bias, because as you said earlier, bias serves a purpose. It's about noticing it and spotting it in real time. And that's when the magic really happens, because you can take in the moment action, make a decision, a conscious choice about what you do with that bias once it emerges.
Yeah, so if we sparked your curiosity, try out the reflection guide. It's here in one of the links below, and gives you some of those prompts that we mentioned that you can apply straight away.
Fantastic. And let us know how you get on in the comments below. As always, please subscribe, please share the love. The channel will grow by people actually liking and subscribing. And please do tell us in the comments what your thoughts are, because then that helps us identify which topics we're going to talk about next. So thanks for joining Ro and Nadja chatting about team coaching. Human beings, not human doings.
Absolutely. See you
Take care.
later.
See you.